2019 was not a great year for Nathan, just for a number of reasons. He didn't engage in the curriculum the way I'd hoped he would. He spent a lot of time trying to get out of the classroom. He was intrigued by the new playgrounds that were close by, the fact that there was a withdrawal room where he could go into and didn't have to deal with the noises and things going on in the class. And once he'd established that routine, it was very hard to break it.
Before we went to school in the morning, he would be very, very anxious. He'd refuse to put on his school uniform, he'd have difficulty eating his breakfast, refusing to get out of the car once we got at school. He'd be very emotional, a lot of tears, just a lot of signs of high anxiety. I know that he couldn't remain in the class at school. He'd be self-exiting all the time, refusing to re-enter, not engaging in any school activities, any classroom work. And then once he had the words "no more school," then I'd be hearing that every single day. I felt extremely guilty, questioning constantly about whether I should return him, knowing it wasn't a good environment for him to be in. Believing definitely that there was an answer, I just needed to find what that was.
Well, one of the keys to breaking the patterns from last year was actually in moving rooms. The room I was in was a slightly smaller room. There wasn't a space within the room for any children to just sort of get away from noises or things that were going on. And Nathan in particular had taken to leaving the room and going into the withdrawal room next door, which was a safe place, but whilst he was in there, he wasn't hearing what was going on in the classroom, so he wasn't privy to all of the curriculum that was happening. One of the things that I had noticed was that he would regularly escape to the library, and because there was books there, and there was this lovely red chair that he could sit in. So during the holidays, I actually sourced one to put in my classroom, so that was just, I knew something that he would like, and just went and bought some games and things that involved balls, which was one of the things that he was quite interested in at the time and one of the things that made him feel comfortable. So I thought it would be nice for him to come into the classroom and see those two things at the beginning of the year and know that, this was going to be a safe place.
I think some of the things that Nathan did, the behaviours that he was displaying previously were confusing, that it was something that was random or could be controlled, or there could have been discipline that could have corrected his behaviour. But when it was understood that it was the disability that was making it difficult for him to behave or conform or control himself, especially in high anxiety situations, then different strategies were used, and it was it's had really positive outcomes.
My hopes for 2020 were really that we could establish a strong team to support not only Nathan but all the children in the classroom. I found in previous years that there was a lot of lack of continuity between teacher aides coming into the classrooms and support teachers coming into the classrooms. So I feel that is not ideal for children like Nathan, that they need that routine and they need that consistency.
And one of the things that Nicola's done particularly well is not accepting the fact that this is how it is. We can do better than this, so let's try and change it, and being very, very, very persistent with that and looking at how we can do that. And my role with that is to make sure that I listen and facilitate that, get blockers out of the way to make those things happen. In the particular case in Year 4, we did a couple of things that made the journey a bit easier. First of all, we looped the classes up so that Nathan had 2 years with the same teacher, and I think that was a really good thing for him. The other part of it too is to make sure that we had the same support team with him. So we didn't have rolling teacher aides working with him. We had a very narrow group of teacher aides that worked with him, the same SEP teacher all the time working with him. So that familiarity and knowing Nathan and Nathan knowing them has helped a lot.
So when I said that I would carry on up to year 4, one of the conditions was that we had a small team, that we could work together, that we would have planning days, that the peer group around him would remain the same. So I spoke with Tracy, our new SEP, and explained to her the difficulties that I'd had last year and what I wanted to achieve. And she was wonderful. She came with a plethora of new ideas, was very set on making sure that everyone that was working with Nathan was using the same languages, the same visuals, the same routines, and that we were following through.
In working with a classroom teacher, we needed to forge a friendship. We needed to build a relationship where we could be respectful and trust each other and rely on each other and support each other, because sometimes it can get tough. And you need to be able to go to that person and go, I just need to have a chat, and know that that's going to be okay. Brainstorming with the teacher was awesome. The planning that we did was great. And that's been a very big, successful part of this year. In my opinion, the key to the success was having a team where we would all collaborate together. Working with Miss Nicola, the teacher aides, we were all on the same page. We knew exactly how to implement all the activities. We knew what the content was going to be. We all understood the students' needs. We were all able to read into when he needed a break, when it was too much, when we could extend him a bit more. Miss Nicola and I had, it was 4 planning sessions. We generally tried to have one in the beginning of the term to plan ahead. And in that session, we brainstormed looking at the content and the descriptors that were coming up in the curriculum, how we could adjust or differentiate it so that he was learning the content, but in the way that he needed to access the content. We had quite a lot of informal planning discussions. Hey, this is working, what do you think about this? Okay, or I saw this the other day, do you think maybe it would work with him? And it was also trial and error. We tried him with some things, and if he showed an interest or was part of the things that engaged him, then we would carry it on and develop it. If it wasn't, it was, well, that didn't work, so we need to think of something else. But you do need the time off class to sit and work together as a team. It's not a fly by the seat of your pants type of thing.
I had a feeling right from the start that he needed relationships that he didn't have, and so that there was 6 hours a day he'd be waiting for me to come and pick him up from school.
One of the most important things for me is getting to know each child individually, because every child is different. They don't all come from the same package. They come from different backgrounds, different families, different experiences in classrooms, and I think it's very important to understand them as individuals.
My first steps in working with the student was to build a relationship with him so that he knew that he was safe with me, that we could be happy and joke, and that it was okay, whatever it was that he was doing, his choices, his behaviour. We built up a respected friendship, and that was always my first step with working with children, because they're not going to work with you if they don't trust you or know who you are.
If you understand the child and you know what makes them tick, it is easy to step in and stop things before they escalate. So in the past it was very much, that we would lose Nathan, that he would get himself into such a state that he would get upset, at himself, at other people, at things around him. Whereas now I can see that happening. I can see when it's about to happen, and I know how to de-escalate it. And I can communicate that with Mum as well, so that when he goes home in the afternoon, she knows why he was upset or why he was happy about something. It's not a mystery to her anymore. Making the children feel worthwhile is extremely important. I think if there's a mutual respect between the teacher and the children, then you're going to have much more success.
So previous to this year, Nathan had a lot of support, a lot of individual support that helped to keep him separate from the class. People assumed that he had random behaviour that didn't initiate from any particular events or have any reason or basis behind it. There were assumptions that he couldn't understand, that he couldn't communicate, that he couldn't participate, and that he needed something alternative to be doing while the class was doing their work. But there was always something separate, an alternative place for him to be within the classroom, and I think he was really confused about where he belonged in the classroom, whether it was at the separate table or whether he should be participating in the activity. I didn't feel like he felt there was a place for him to be included. This year, there's been a lot more opportunity for him to be independent, to work independently. The supports that have been provided are really supporting his independence.
So I made it very clear this year that the role of the teacher aide was to support all children, to help anyone in the class that needed it, and to do that at a distance. I think at times where things can go wrong is when a teacher aide comes into the room and feels they have to do everything for a child. I think the fact that we have a team that works together means that I can work with Nathan and the teacher aides can work with the rest of the class. It means that at times, we can just give a little visual cue or a little verbal cue, and he will respond to that better now, just because we are all on the same page. When we allowed Nathan to explore on his own, that was when we had the biggest successes. So when we took away that hand-on-hand cutting, or that, someone else writing something for him, that's when we had the greatest successes. And from there, it's just been improving every day. He used to stand back a lot and not join in, whereas now he'll approach other children and get involved. If Nathan leaves the room now, he goes to just outside the classroom. So that is a huge step. Last year, we were going out of sight, which is not a safe environment for anyone. As a teacher, it's very stressful when a child wants to leave the class constantly. But this year, we established signs, visual signs that sort of said to the children, this is where you can go, this is when you can go. We're lucky here at Strathpine, we do have a school-wide behaviour plan, we have school-wide visuals that can be used in every classroom. So the visuals that we use for Nathan just mirrored the ones that were in the classroom. So every day I have a timetable up of what we're doing, and Nathan has a smaller version of that that's broken down. Once we had established those routines and things, and he was in the classroom a lot more, it was easier to then get him to engage in the activities that we were trying to get him to engage in. It has been amazing. It's like a penny dropped. He came in smiling, he was engaging in things we were doing. Every day we were able to take away a little bit more of the support we were giving him, and he was seeking out activities on his own, and he's just continued to grow from there. One of the biggest things is seeing him come in happy every day. It's like it's not a scary place anymore. He wants to come in, he wants to try new things.
I see the responses from Nicola to be positive in every single occasion. When he's needed things to be consistent, she's stayed on a steady course. But if things need to be changed, if he finds it difficult to settle in the morning, he has the opportunity to read, which he enjoys, and she knows from experience that that's something that helps to settle him in the morning. So if he doesn't need it, he can go straight into spelling, but if he needs to read, then he has the opportunity to do that before he gets started in the morning. And I just found her to be able to comfort him even at times of distress where he may have done something that might typically have upset another teacher or staff member.
Good communication between home and school is incredibly important. I think one of the most important things for parents is that they feel heard. I've actually found working with Sonia to be very easy. I think I found it easy because right from day one I tried to put myself in her shoes. It must be so difficult to send your child to school each day knowing that they can't come home and tell you what they're doing. So I think I tried to see how that would be for her. I've tried to be open and communicate with her regularly. Obviously, as a teacher, you're very busy and it can't be done on a daily basis, but I found with Sonia, even the littlest things, a photograph, a quick email or a quick chat at the end of the day helps to ease her apprehension.
I really appreciate the communication that I have with Nicola, his teacher. She immediately was very open. We were able to freely talk to each other. She would even make opportunities for us to talk at drop-off or pick-up. She would share things that had happened throughout his day, which were just so valuable to me because then I could share that with him. We started sharing holiday photos, which were really a huge bridge from between home and school. So she was able to talk to him about things that had been happening at home and really have a bit of an insight into what his life was like outside of school, and to be able to see the positives and really see the person, get a glimpse of some of his ability. And then the more that he was able to show, the more she was able to see. He was able to see us having a conversation, being friendly. I think he felt like when I dropped him off, I handed him over to her and he felt safe about being in her hands for the day. Nicola notifies me if there's going to be a record made, and so I'm given all the details in regards to whatever incident has taken place. If there's ever anything negative for her to relay to me, she's always questioning what may have happened. She's already considered things that may have been a cause. She's very open to explain to me what had happened in a particular setting so that we can try and find a resolution. I'm not worrying all the time. I know she'll contact me if I need to be contacted. I always shared our vision for him to be a valued member of the school and school community, and for him to participate in the activities that were at school. Even when things weren't going well, I would still try to communicate how important it was for us to find the answers that we needed for him. I just continued with the message that there was an answer and that this isn't the child that I have at home.
I look at my role as being a listener, first of all. So listen to what the staff have to say, listen to parents, listen to the kids, and then try to facilitate the best way to go forward with plans and with helping and supporting each student. The other part that I do is to make sure that the resources are available for things to happen. And sometimes that requires some very careful planning, but also it requires the ability to be flexible because unexpected things happen. And we need to be able to accommodate that without too much fuss, because sometimes little things can grow into big things, and so that's what we try and do, be very proactive around that. The other part too that I'm very conscious of is making sure that what we're doing in the school meets departmental requirements and legislation, which I take that part very, very seriously.
You can't hold everything personally. It's not really personally about you. It's just the child trying to communicate something. And you generally do figure it out if you sometimes take a step back and think about all the aspects that could possibly be influencing what you are seeing. You have to include the family members. You need to include the people who are with them most of the time because they hold some key answers. You need to look at also a whole wide variety of things. It's not just the student themselves, it's their environment. It's how did their morning go? What are they actually trying to communicate to you through their behaviour? You need a good support network. You need to be able to go to somebody who is part of the team and understands, who can support you, and go, I'm really struggling with this. You have to be able to ask for help because you don't always know the answers. And sometimes sharing the frustrations and not quite getting something right, you'll learn.
Doesn't discuss not going to school anymore. It's easy to get ready in the morning. No problem with putting on his uniform. Doesn't need to self-exit. He can communicate easier with his teacher. I definitely encourage families, if they're finding things difficult, to find a support network. I am very relieved that I persisted and continued. I think we would have had a lot to lose had I not have persisted and found the support I needed and the information I needed to continue.
I'm most proud of the fact that the student has had a really fantastic, successful year. COVID aside, he has developed new routines, he has built friendships, he has really become part of this class. He accesses content at his year level. He has developed great relationships with his teacher, Miss Nicola, with the teacher aides, with me. So to see him happy and to see him really just liking being at school, that for me is the best part. This year, it has been a really growth year for me as a teacher. I have been an SCP teacher for almost 9-10 years in various schools in Queensland. It's really joyful, to be honest, to go home at the end of the day and know that the strategies that you've worked with, the kids that you've built a relationship with, to see their progress, it's a phenomenal feeling. It's fantastic to see them do something and achieve something that they couldn't quite in the beginning.
And I'm really proud of the progress he's making in his learning outcomes. It's been very, very exciting to see him. We knew the potential was always there, but for us to be able to reach that potential and for us to be clever enough to look at ways that he can show us that has made a big difference. I feel most proud of the fact that that Nathan, I believe, sees himself as a learner at school, and he's confident, he's happy, and he's part of the class. And the class see him as another student in the room, learning as well.
Some of the fun things that I see Nathan doing now is just getting in and having a go at absolutely everything we do. NAIDOC Day, he went out and he did the painting that we did. In the past, he wouldn't have done that. We did science experiments last week, and just watching his excitement as he joins in those activities has been it's just wonderful to watch. We're talking about a kid who in the past had not drawn a stick figure on a page, so to see him producing pieces of art is fantastic.
This year Nathan's been able to demonstrate some of his knowledge, which he hadn't been able to do previously. He hadn't been able to participate in any assessment, so assumptions were fairly low, but Nicola's been able to record things that she's seen and then been able to extend on that and been able to provide him different ways to demonstrate his knowledge, which has been really a huge relief for me because I knew that he knew a lot. He was able to demonstrate that at home but hadn't been able to demonstrate it at school.
I know I've been successful when my children are smiling. One of my biggest thrills as a teacher is seeing kids smile as they learn. Sometimes we tend to make things too strict for kids, but I think just seeing kids laughing and having fun as they learn that tells me I've done my job.
I see him walking out of school with other boys. When he walks out to the car, he's certainly a lot happier at home, a lot less movement, just a lot more settled. He's just grown and developed so much in the past 12 months. He has changed both at home and at school. His well-being has improved enormously and he's able to enjoy things and participate more. It's really been a wonderful thing for our family.